I think some of the things that were talked about with regards to even what the potential is for Matthias, we never expected that with that aggregate data, something like that would pop out so soon. So that was just a nice bonus, but it does prove out the idea of when you're getting all that information across the industry, those trends, they're quick. And we always talk about the negative pieces, but I think there's also opportunities of identifying, you know, what's working really well, what somebody doing effectively, and that can be brought across the board. All right, so, is this the right one? Make sure I got the right one. Yes, all right. So, you know, just to close things out, put things in perspective, I think, thank you for everybody for their engagement. There is a lot, and I know that there's a lot that the centers got going on. There's a lot that the agencies got going on. It's a lot of activity. I want to kind of just reemphasize again, there is a purpose, right? There is a method to the madness. It isn't just arbitrary. So I mentioned this the last time. I want to make sure we kind of put this out there again so people remember. You know, it's all about how do we drive that better outcome to the patient. That's why we are doing this. All these initiatives tie in, they're together in one way, shape, or form. They're moving a little bit of our culture. It's also trying to drive the industry culture that keeps the focus back on here and reset. So we're driving the best outcomes, right? Some of these programs and projects are about enhancing the toolbox we have, so it's not just the one enforcement hammer. Some of it's about just the transformation, the change, right? Better information, better data, really driving that perspective. So keeping that in mind and keeping that in focus, let me just kind of walk you through the way I see some of the things that we've got going on. We talked about the appropriate activity sets. I'm going to focus up on this piece again, that idea of developing a new framework that includes the voluntary program, you know, for device manufacturers. Well, how does it come together? This question comes up a lot. You know, we had some of this discussion coming in yesterday. This is just me. This isn't perfect. This isn't ideal. This isn't the way that it needs to be. One thing I think everybody needs to take away from here is we as an agency, as a regulator, are open to the idea that we can probably build something that works better together than if we set up and prescribe things. But taking a first pass again, don't take this as the gospel, but we'll start here. We started here. This is where we were, FDA and industry. Even we started the first engagements and collaborations, right? MDIC was our mechanism for that. It was about establishing that trust. It's about giving us a space collectively, that safe space, to go on that same theme, to start having some of the conversations, start focusing on the right things. That's really what MDIC's mission was, right? It's really what they're looking to drive. They're looking to drive that regulatory research, drive that collaboration. So from that, we came up with the idea of a different way of looking at the industry, right? FDA, how do we change the dynamics? Work was done, again, through that model, through that effective activity, to develop a different way to look at things. The appraisal methodology, CMMI was brought into the loop to help move that. That's evolved, right? That's where we are now, the VIP program. All of this kind of touching, they're all engaging. It's really trying to get to those bits and pieces of what's the amount of information and visibility. We crafted this so that, you know, industry got their information, FDA got the information it needed, but at the same time, everybody kept the focus on what was important. Safety around that, how to get that driven and done. It's not about the gotcha. Right? Now we're rolling in MITRE. We talk about that trusted third party. How do they start to touch overlap? And you see they start to connect the industry, they start to connect FDA, they start to connect the VIP program and the information that's going on there. You know, the appraisals that are ongoing. Bless it. Now we talk about Matthias. How does Matthias connect into this whole structure, right? It looks and seems like it's this complex, you know, world, but it really is all intentional. It's all intended to connect. Where do things join and really start to become a broader, you know, set of information that comes in? How do we roll in the other people who are relevant to this, who will get value, who can contribute value? to the whole system without using ecosystem. But I just said it anyway, so it doesn't matter. And then, again, this is what we're talking about. This is what we're envisioning as the full community. When we talk about case for quality, and I think early stages of it being kicked off within MDIC, it was talked about as a journey, right? As a whole movement that needs to happen. That means it is a broader involvement and engagement. We do need to make sure we're getting the right inputs, the right additional stakeholders. But we're there. We started. Again, the whole message around the board, just start. We're starting, and we've made some progress. So the whole activity here and what we're engaged with and what MITRE's trying to help do for us is continue that momentum, right? Take the learning and the capability that they've got to move things forward. I don't know, and I won't speak for your organizations or what's going on, but and without insulting the MITRE people and others. Okay. Their expertise, they're data geeks. They own it. I hope they own it. You guys own it, right? We're not there. Just in fairness, FDA, we're nerds. We got it. You guys got the geeks. We're the nerds. Exactly. The expertise that they can bring to the table to help move the needle on this, to help really drive, to give us the insight we need to focus on the right things, to provide the insights back that you guys need to do the work. That's what they can bring to the table. And they are just wired to help do that in collaboration. They've seen that succeed. So when we talk about what they're bringing and what they're doing, that's the role that they're starting and then really driving to play. When we talked about all the things that need to happen, because we've done work in terms of what's the right governance structure for this, what's the right governance structure for that. Each one's going to have its unique needs, but nothing's perfectly defined. This is where we need your input. This is where we expect your collaboration to help define that. We want it to be the best model that'll work for everyone versus one that we prescribe or generate as a vision. Again, these are just my thoughts. These are not the way it needs to be. If you find that there's a better way to look at this, if there's a better way to move this along, let's do that. It's what's the right thing to do, not what does FDA want. This one I like, because that's the sweet spot, I think. That's all, when we talk about the data sharing, I think that's the spot we want to figure out the secret sauce to. It's going to take a while, because everybody's going to want a bit of it, and everybody, once you get some, you want more. You want to make other decisions with it. But that's the piece that collaboratively we need to sort of drive. What does that mean? We talked about that. New regulatory framework. Different, collaborative, data-driven. This is, I think, what FDA wants to be doing. When we talk about what even the commissioner spoke about yesterday, this is, I think, what he's trying to get at when he says about us being more data-driven and our approaches and methodologies driving that way. We talk about the visibility, control, speed, and everything on that end, right? This information, a lot of the insights we can gather, this collaboration, the trust that we can build on that, that's where we get all that visibility. We always do and want to try to be least burdensome. We can simplify processes. We can work to reduce some of the confusion and some of the errors, but we need the engagement, we need the collaboration, we need to understand what's working, we need to understand what's not working, what you do, what can you do sometimes, and I've seen it already in the last 3 days. You guys have different solutions if we just present to you what the problem is and can help fix that. So that's, I think, where we've got the opportunity to shift the dynamic, and it will change things, right? We are talking about the opportunity to accelerate product improvement. We've seen that already, even with the ones who've been participating in the pilot program, market access. I think that's where we all want to try to be moving towards. We need more of that information, that data to help shift that. New technologies, and again, the end goal, improve patient outcomes. And I think that's very doable, quite visible down the road. I like this. And again, I say I steal religiously from things. And I want to give credit, he's not here, Management Control, our Matrix. I will say that I stole a lot of his pieces here to kind of draft out the example. But Dr. Stearns talked about this. You know, he's used that Iron Man analogy multiple times when he's been out public. And I want to make sure everybody knows who Jarvis is, because this was a surprise to me. There's people out there who don't know what Jarvis is. You know, the idea of more information, what can we do with that? It isn't about more enforcement or compliance. It's about better oversight. It's about being more effective and efficient in what we're trying to do. That's, I think, the end goal. I think people fear that when sharing information, our response is always going to be a negative reaction. I think we've been able to demonstrate that that's not the case, and oftentimes, even with some of the interactions we've had with our reviews, the more information they have, the better they feel about what the company's doing. It just shows you're in control, and I think that's really what the expectation is. But I mean, think about what we can possibly do at Enable. It has a dashboard. If we looked at things differently, and I'm not saying it has to be your particular dashboard, but it's about the data. We could see and have a completely different picture of industry. Look at things from broader trends, comparative. They're performing well. You know, there's no risk there. We can see what's going on with their products. We can see fail modes. Some of this data people are already submitting in terms of product performance pieces. So it helps us say, yep, you've got it. You saw an issue. We don't need to engage. You're working on it. Let's move on, and we'll focus our resources where they need to be. This is, I think, what we want to be able to enable down the road. And it's actually not as far out there as you might think it to be. So with that, I will take any closing questions and go from here. Yeah.
VIP in any way related to ISO 4971, the latest revision?
Say it again, I'm sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. Is NCS VIP in any way related to the latest revision of ISO 4971, 2019, which requires overall residual response?
Yeah, so the NCS VIP, right, it's all focused around the, obviously, what are the observations, what's being cited to a regulation, right? We have one shot at this. We've got 9 sites that we're trying to work through. We know we are going to move to the model where 1345 is also where we are. The alignment is there, right? 95% there. What's left over, minimal risk. So when we crafted this, what we said is, let's start speaking that language now when we build out the pilot program. So it's built into the construct and idea of how we're thinking through the NCS VIP. It's using that 1345 focus.
So I just want to say it's not unlike the way MDSAP is focused on 13.971, but yet we use it, and that we and since we're going to the ISO 13485 standard and its reliance on 14971, that we want to base this program starting with that language, because that's where our language is.
So yesterday we were talking about, data and what we could do with the data. Actually, one of the big issues that I think the agency was working on with patients was the pelvic mesh fiasco and the 100,000 patients that had injuries. And so, how do you see a model like that being able to prevent something like that happening?
So that's an interesting one as a whole, because there's a lot, I think, in that situation that you have to make sure you're getting the full context around, right, with the use and how it's being applied. We didn't have a lot of that extra visibility. So, of course, what's our option, right? There's issues, there's injuries happening. We don't have any other data to move or support one way or the other. I know that, you know, the agency took the steps that it thought it needed to do, was appropriate to do, because absent anything else, that's what, and where are the actual breaks and control points? We saw some of this in the discussions yesterday. Is it really the technology issue? Is it manufacturer issue? Is it something that's going on within the practice that we need to target differently and address? That's where I see this being able to tackle and answer questions like that. So it isn't just a reaction. In this case, we really needed to make sure we were addressing the safety activities that were going on. And what we did learn is we want to be responsible when we're hearing some of those safety activities. And that's really, I think, oftentimes when we talk about it collectively as an industry, both FDA and industry, we get in trouble is we're not quick enough to respond. Issues are going out there. So something like this, something like what Medias is able to maybe put into play and offer, is about getting more insight, more of that information to be better about that response. And I think that's where the benefit is. But yeah, we know that's the situation. It's happened a couple of times over the last year, right? With products. If nothing else, I thank everyone who braved COVID-19 to come here. Look forward to continuing to work with you guys, and if there's any thoughts, any additional feedback on anything, you can reach out to us. We're connecting the right people, or you know, you've got contacts within each other now to kind of seek out and engage with. Nobody hug Adrian, apparently, unless you're Steve. And enjoy the rest of the day, those of you who are sticking around. If not, safe flight.